Now it's the 2018 Bodybuilding Awards!
Hi everybody, welcome to GameGorgon. My name is Krug.
I'm Indigo.
Today we're here to talk to you about Strength in Pathfinder 2nd Edition Playtest, a stat that I don't have.
Hey!
Gotcha.
Kept it through and through.
Yep, except for that one time.
Now, the first thing that we're going to get into with Strength is the fact that all of them are untrained except for one.
Yeah, so there's not really a lot of stuff that weak people can't attempt. You're just gonna fail a bunch. But there is one thing at the very end that actually requires some sort of training.
The other thing about Strength is the fact that there's only one skill check and it's athletics, and that's where everything kind of fits in.
Yep, and there are tons and tons of things underneath it that you can do.
Yeah, so it's literally just gonna say athletics in this corner the entire time.
So we may as well get rid of it. You're either gonna make me look super cool by getting rid of it when I snapped, or make me look dumb by leaving it up there. Or making it slightly bigger.
Or both.
Or we'll see how you pull that off. The first action we're gonna go over is grapple. This is a check you're going to make when you want to grab someone. Grab is a condition. We're gonna be going over conditions pretty soon, so be on the lookout for that. The check you're gonna make is an athletics check, versus the opponent's fort DC.
Which, a DC, which we should probably mention what it is, since it's used a lot in this, is it is whatever stat it is reading off.
In this case, fortitude.
Plus 10.
Yep.
And that is just the flat number.
Yeah, they don't get a roll, they don't get modified, it's just the number plus 10. On a success, your opponent has the grabbed condition unless you decide to move, or they use the break the grapple action.
On a critical success, you have restrained your target until the end of your next turn until you move or the grapple is broken.
And restrained, keep in mind, is different than grab. They're two separate conditions. On a failure, you either fail to grab the opponent, or if they were already grabbed by you and you were just trying to reapply the effect ends.
With a critical fail, you lose the grapple effect and the opponent has the opportunity to turn around and grapple you.
Which is funny, because you can only grapple something that's up to 2 sizes larger than you. So what if something 2 sizes larger than you is grappling you and then critically fails? Can you then grab it?
Yeah, it probably would be difficult to like maintain.
Yeah, you'd probably be dead really quick, yeah.
Next is the ability to break away from a grapple. This will be your athletics roll against their athletics DC.
Now keep in mind, this isn't the only way to break a grapple. There's also the escape action that we talked about in the dexterity video.
If you succeed, guess what? You get out. You're no longer grabbed or restrained.
Nice. On a critical success, it's basically the same thing as grapple, except for you get to break the grapple and grab the opponent as though they had failed their grapple check.
Which makes a lot of sense, especially in wrestling.
Yep.
Like, oh, I got out. Immediately, first thing I'm going to do is try to grab you.
Yeah, I agree with all of my wrestling experience that I have.
On a critical fail, if you were grabbed, you are now restrained. And if you're restrained, you can't get out for another turn.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Next up, we have break open, which is the action that you want to use if you want to break something open.
Well, and it's not even break something open. It's open anything that's difficult.
With force.
Yeah.
As opposed to picking the lock.
Yes, exactly.
That's basically the only difference here, is that you're not picking it, you're not doing it elegantly, as you'll see when we read the descriptions of things. On a success, you open the thing. Wait,
what?
Hold on. Keep in mind, it's again, you're not opening it cleanly, and that might have some sort of ramification to your roleplay.
If you critically succeed,
you
open it and didn't damage it.
Ooh. Do you see how it has significance in your roleplay now? On a critical failure, you jam the thing that you're trying to open, making it more closed than it previously was. Meaning that you get a -2 circumstance, not bonus, a -2 circumstance penalty to future checks to try to open it. I would like to point out, this does not say future checks to try to break it open.
True.
It says future checks to open it.
You're like, all right, I'm really having difficulty opening this window. I've got a great idea. Nail, hammer.
I have a feeling that that's not how your GM is going to justify that at all.
Next is climb, where you have to try to climb something, either upwards or downwards.
You can also go left, and if you so choose, you can go right.
Yes, all of those things in climb. On a success, you move 5 feet either up or down or left or right when you're climbing the object.
At your GM's discretion, you could move sort of in between some of those directions.
Yes.
On a critical success, you move up to half your speed, the same direction joke as last time.
On a critical failure, you fall. And you probably take some damage. All of the falling rules is under conditions, I believe, so we'll go over that in a later date.
Also, I would like to point out a caveat for critical failure is that you cannot choose the direction you fall. That is decided by gravity.
Or the lack thereof.
Or the lack thereof, true. The next two actions we're gonna go over are both about jumping. This one is high jump, which is where you're trying to jump vertically up into the air. This is going to be an athletics check that you make that is always a flat DC of 30, and it's in an attempt to jump 5 feet straight up in the air. On a success, you can take the leap action and increase the height of your jump to 5 feet.
On a critical success, you increase your vertical jump by, instead of going 5 feet, you go 8.
80?
8.
Oh.
8-0.
That's 8.
No, you only move 8 feet.
Yeah,
so
that's not a lot.
if you're using, you know, the traditional 5-foot square,
yeah.
you're moving a square and a half up.
Yeah.
Which I will say, an 8-foot vertical jump is pretty damn good. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Or the other option is that you jump 5 feet up and 10 feet forward.
Which is pretty cool from standing still.
Yes.
That's the thing about this, is that you're doing it from stationary. So you can get a little bit of...
Yeah, and there's caveats to that. If you get a running start, you get
and it's a different
exactly.
On a failure, you get to use the leap action, and you don't get to increase your height to whatever. Just leap. That's all you get to do.
And we should explain what leap is.
Do it.
Leap is just basically you as a character, based off of your standard movement speed, can jump over a specific space without making any rolls, any attempts, or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just your natural ability to jump.
Yeah, exactly. On a critical fail, instead of jumping, you just fall prone. So
that looks really funny in my head.
now off to long jump, which is a very interesting and actually a mechanic that I like, which is it's a flat 5 DC plus 1 for every foot that you're trying to jump.
Nice.
So it just, starting off, you have to roll higher than a 5 on your athletics, and then so if you're trying to jump 20 feet,
Yep.
right, it's a DC of 25 to succeed.
Makes sense.
The other caveat to it is that you can't jump further than your move distance.
Right, and that's just a mechanic of jump in general.
Exactly. So it's just preventing you from, you know, oh, well, I need to get over this 40-foot cavern and my movement speed's 25. Like,
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
You're screwed. Well, and it also prevents you from moving your speed and then being like, oh, and right at the end, I'm going to jump and get an extra X amount of... You're not going to do that.
Yeah. On a success, guess what? You make the distance in which you were trying to attempt to get to.
Good job. On a failure, you leap the amount that leap allows without extending the distance. Notice it doesn't say that you can, it just says that you do. So there's no aborting when you fail. You're all in. You're gonna fall and hurt yourself probably.
Now, this was a part of this when we were going over show notes where we had a kind of a point of contention.
Yep.
Where it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because most of the time that you're going to be making a jump, it's because you're trying to avoid the thing that you're trying to jump over, right? So you're jumping over a pit or a trap or something like that. So the difference between failure, which is you can only jump 10 feet instead of the 15 that you needed, right? You instead jump 10 feet and you hit the trap or you fall down, right? That's a failure. Now, critical failure is you don't make that jump and you're prone, which at that point, I'm just following the fall rules instead. So I don't really understand, like I'm trying to figure out like a good situation.
It should have just said like, it should have just added the word fall in there instead of giving it prone. I think that would have made more sense because then now, in a specific situation where you're jumping over a pit, like specifically, right, that's like pretty deep instead of just like, yeah, it's possible that you can jump just straight over flat terrain for no readily apparent reason, critically fail and land prone, but how often are you going to do that? Those two rules might conflict if it's a pit kind of situation. And why would you make two rules that conflict?
Yeah, and like honestly, my brain immediately always assumes that you're jumping over like a spike pit.
Yeah.
So it's like, why does it matter whether you're standing or you're prone? You're going to take the pitfall damage no matter what.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yep.
I just... I wish that was more of a concise, or just not have a critical failure.
If you understand why that critical failure exists, let us know down in the comments.
For sure.
We love learning as much as you do. Next up is shove, where you're trying to probably push someone off of the frame of the camera. I was gonna say cliff, but then Indigo got handsy. The roll here is your athletics check versus their fort DC, again. On a success, you push the opponent 5 feet back. It says 5 feet back, not 5 feet back and slightly to the right. You have to just go straight back. And you, as the person doing the pushing, can choose to move up to 5 feet in the same direction. So basically you can stay within melee distance of them.
Yeah. Now on a critical success, that same action happens, except for instead of 5 feet, it's 10 feet, and you also can choose to move the 10 feet with them.
I love the fact that you can move with them. That is my favorite part about this, because as a melee character, you don't want to disengage, but maybe you want to like get somebody away from your backline, so you're just literally pushing them away from your backline with your arms. Like,
and
it feels good.
And the thing is, like, you can spend 2 actions shove. Like, let's just say you succeed. You move them back 10 feet, right? The fact that you can move with them saves, because if you just shove them back 5 feet, and then you had to use a part of a move action to move 5 feet
next round,
to then shove them 5 feet,
it'd be miserable.
It'd be so dumb.
Yeah, you can actually shove someone if you critically succeed 3 times, 30 feet, which is nuts. Like, imagine that in your head. Looks really cool. On a critical failure, you lose your balance and land prone. Nothing happens to your opponent, and you look dumb. Good job.
I always imagine like just like super like banana peel, like you like.
Do you know that I can't hold all these limes guy?
Yeah.
I imagine that every time we read critical fail. Almost every single time. It's just like, you're inept. Stop.
Next is swim, which in itself, you can swim. You have the ability to swim. Unless character-wise you choose not to have the ability to swim. But swimming is just a thing. You have a swim speed. Now, if the water is difficult to swim in, or if you're trying to dive down and it's not easy water, you actually have to make an athletics check to swim.
Basically, if you're a player, when the GM says you have to make a check to swim.
Yeah, and the GM also determines the DC.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, why is there like set rules past this?
I have
like,
no idea.
At that point, you're just like, GM, make it so that they have to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why add them? Like, if you're not going to make the situation in which that it's in concrete, why make concrete
you leave
rules?
literally the entire scenario surrounding the condition in which you make the check and the difficulty of the check, and then make this hyper-specific success scenario? Doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
You gotta just delete this, like, for reals.
If you succeed, you get to move. Now, there's a lot to it, so I'm just going to have to read it off. You move 5 feet horizontally through the water if your speed is 15 feet or greater. You move 10 feet instead, and if that is if your speed is 60 feet or greater. You move 50 feet in that situation, and you can swim upwards or downwards, but going through it counts as difficult terrain. Now, if you are swimming and your average move speed is 25, you're moving 10 feet in the water, right?
Yep.
And if you do that and you decide to go down, you're only moving 5 feet. So it's just, I don't know, it's just way more difficult than it needs to be. And I just, unless you're going into a really, really in-depth underwater campaign.
In-depth underwater?
I didn't even do that on purpose. Pun not intended, but it is now. But yeah, it's just, I just don't understand.
If being in the water isn't a huge part of your campaign, you're probably going to ignore this, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
we're
just be like,
also going to do that.
Roll an athletics check. Great, you swim.
Yep.
You succeed or you don't. Like.
Yep. Critical success is the same as success, except for increase all of the movement distances by 5 feet.
There you go. Now, on a critical failure, you don't move, and it actually takes 2 actions for you to hold your breath.
Oh. I like that one, to be honest.
I mean, but that's the thing.
I think I'd make it success. You can move in the difficult water up to your swim speed, or half your move speed if you don't have a swim speed for whatever reason. Critical failure, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm playing with. Next up is trip. This is in order to go to France, you're gonna have to roll a trip check, and then you're gonna need to buy plane tickets, and you're gonna eat a baguette.
And a passport.
And a passport. Yeah. You're gonna need to buy a fake passport.
No, none of that.
Oh yeah, let's forge a document.
You're never leaving this country.
Seriously, trip is to try to knock somebody prone. It's going to be your athletics check versus their reflex DC this time. On a success, your target does indeed fall prone.
Oh!
Get wrecked.
On a critical success, not only are they knocked prone, but they also take 1d6 of bludgeoning damage.
That seems...
I like that.
Yeah, like...
It's like, instead of just tripping, you're like tripping.
Oh my god. That's violence. Whoa! On a critical failure, you lose your balance and you land prone. The person initiating the trip lands prone. Sucks to be you.
And the other person just stands there and goes,
And, yeah, well, no, the other person stands there, pulls out a bladed weapon, and kills you with it.
or the people's elbow.
Ooh. Yeah, we'll get onto the people's elbow when we go over the rock archetype.
All right, head down in the description and there'll be a link to Void Merch, who supplied us with these awesome shirts. We love them and we hope you guys do too. So head down there and get some.
If you wear this shirt during your session, you can only roll 20s and 1s. That's not true.
Yeah, no, not at
That's
all.
not true at all.
Now, the one and only trained action that you can do with athletics is Disarm, which is a athletics check versus their reflex DC.
On a success, you weaken your opponent's grasp on the thing that they're holding onto, giving future disarm checks a +2 until the start of their next turn.
On a critical success, you flat out knock the thing out of that person's hand and it is now on the ground. Which is weird because you're like, okay, success, you don't really disarm them. You're just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
But when you critically success, that's when you actually disarm them?
Yeah.
See, I would have done success, you disarm them, right? Critical success, you now have that weapon.
Or a critical success.
Or you now have that item.
No, I don't think you get it, but I think you choose a space within 5 feet that it lands.
Okay.
I think that'd be good.
Have you ever seen like people like have a gun?
Yeah.
And they like disarm it and they like
Yeah.
they can turn it back on the other person? That's how I imagine it would have been like critical success. Like you have a sword and you just like whoa, 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 and then
You
it's
just
like,
grab the blade, you're just bleeding all over it. On a critical failure, you lose your balance and become flat-footed until the end of your next turn.
Now, this is the other thing that we kind of talked about a lot before, which is we were talking about grappling and how the best way that a third person could assist in that grapple. Now, my personal opinion is that it's disarm, but the way that they word disarm doesn't work because in the first like description paragraph they say something, right?
Yeah, they use to identify the target of the disarm, they use the word something.
Yeah.
And then in all of the results,
They say an item.
yeah, which is, I think, probably one of the most confusing things in RPG books is when they're not consistent with their vocabulary, and this is one of those situations. I'm pretty sure that the intent here is that it's supposed to only affect items.
Yes.
But I do agree with him that it makes sense to have this be, because like mechanically, if you think about the athletics roll versus reflex DC, like mechanically that does make sense to resist somebody trying to break your grapple on somebody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
So
you have to move fast enough to get away from the opening
Yeah.
that you've allowed them to have.
Exactly.
Like, that's the idea behind it.
And I trust him because he used to wrestle and I, instead of wrestling, played the trumpet. So.
Well, you're good at blowing. All of the musicians that listen to this show just like
Completely.
Indigo.
If you're a musician, make fun of Indigo in the comments, but don't curse because YouTube's algorithm. Thank you.
Also, head down to the comments and let us know how you would use grappling and how to get a third person involved in a grapple to remove it. Let us know in the comments how you as a GM or you as a player would like it to be done. While you're down there, go ahead and hit the like button. That helps the channel out a ton. It allows us to be seen across the board more often. Subscribe if you're not, and if you are subscribed, and even if you're not, hit that button and then hit the bell icon so that you can join the party brigade.
I want to clarify, if
you are subscribed, don't re-hit the button. You've already done that part. You've already successfully done step 1. Step 2, bell icon. Step 3, head over to Twitter and talk to us. You can talk to me on Twitter at IndigoQT.
And you can get me at KrugQT on Twitter, or you can talk to both of us at the same time using all of these social media things. We've been GameGorgon. We'll see you guys next time.